Health Focus is brought to you by National Medical Stores, NMS, passionate about your life.
In a rapidly evolving world where women are embracing multiple roles as providers, leaders, mothers and caretakers, Lisa Kusima's journey as a mother of 3 illuminates the challenges that arise when navigating the path of breastfeeding alongside a career. During her first pregnancy, Lisa encountered the reality of a workplace devoid of any dedicated space for breastfeeding. She engaged her employer by then, who was open and willing to create a supportive environment for nursing mothers.
Because I'd seen previous moms would maybe breastfeed from office when we are, all of us together. So if you have men in the room, then it would be a challenge. So they have to go out. So I talked about it, and they were willing and open to putting a breastfeeding kind of place and room to help us with this journey on motherhood.
Upon her return from maternity leave, Lisa managed to sustain breastfeeding for a month in addition to the 3 months of leave. Due to inconsistency in breastfeeding, her milk production declined.
1 month of trying to pump at work, it was just not possible. The milk just disappeared. And I know we face lots of guilt. Some people say, maybe you didn't do it, you're not good enough. Maybe you didn't put in extra time. Maybe you're choosing the work over your child. But as in the economy that we are in, as in we're doing our best.
Lisa admits that despite the provision of breastfeeding spaces, the life of a career mother is faced with challenges, especially when meetings and clients demand attention. Striking a balance between professional commitments and breastfeeding often evokes feelings of guilt and inadequacy.
People expect you to still deliver whether you have a child or not. So it becomes a challenge for career moms. So you end up saying, you know what, let me just leave the whole breastfeeding situation because it's just too much.
The endeavor to sustain breastfeeding while fulfilling demanding work obligations has emerged as a pressing concern. Most workplaces adhere to the legally mandated 3-month maternity leave period, but they do not have spaces to enable mothers breastfeed while at work. Regrettably, this return to work frequently disrupts the recommended practice of exclusive breastfeeding. Experts highlight that breast milk provides the ideal nutrients for infants, ensuring their optimal growth and development. Breast milk shields infants from common infections like diarrhea, coughs and flu, and even when babies get these infections, they battle them easily.
It has a lot of anti-infective properties, so things that prevent the baby from developing infections, because these babies are prone, their immune system is still developing. Even when the mother has an infection and her baby breastfeeds, her baby instead gets antibodies against that infection and not the infection.
Science has shown it protects the babies from short-term and long-term illnesses. It has shown that it protects babies from type 1 diabetes, it protects the baby from obesity, it protects the baby from certain conditions like sudden infant death syndrome. Then on the mother's side, those are benefits for the baby, but on the mother's side, it also has been, if breastfeeding a child for a longer period protects the mother from ovarian cancer, breast cancer. So I would encourage mothers to, as much as possible, breastfeed their child.
They further emphasize that embracing exclusive breastfeeding could potentially save up to 820,000 babies annually. And it's upon this that stakeholders are advocating for workplaces to establish lactation rooms or dedicated spaces equipped to facilitate exclusive breastfeeding during the crucial first 6 months.
It's best not to separate mothers and their babies, because that allows the baby access to the breast, and that's the best situation, where the baby can get their feed right from the source.
But another benefit that is not talked about so much, it's talked about but not as much, is bonding. That bonding the mother has with the child.
Parliament has already paved the way by establishing such nurturing spaces in September 2015. Joan Atimango, a working mother at Parliament, attests to transformative impact of utilizing this space. This initiative not only enabled her to exclusively breastfeed her child, but also fostered a deep maternal bond.
Instead of leaving her home, I always had time for her when I was here, compared to how it would be if the child was at home with a maid. it was also more safe for the child than leaving the child with a maid who you are not very sure of how they are going to take care of the child.
Parliamentarians affirm that these spaces have empowered women members of parliament to effectively do their legislative duties and nurture their children.
What we used to know is that the mothers, the members of parliament who have been carrying babies, they would always suffer a lot when it comes to breastfeeding, and that would disorganize them.
Previously, by 2, a mother is requesting to go home because she has been away from a child for a long time, which is understandable. But since this center came and the staff we recruited here, there's no complaint.
While many mothers attest to their dedication to exclusive breastfeeding for the initial 3 months, transitioning back to work introduces a host of challenges. The strain of separation, inconsistent breastfeeding, disrupts milk production and often drives mothers to forego exclusive breastfeeding, resorting to substitutes like formula and cow's milk. Unfortunately, this decision bars the unique benefits of breast milk, including vital immunity support. Moreover, prolonged use of bottles would see babies develop preference for bottles over breastfeeding.
So you notice that during the first 3 months, they are constantly with their babies, breastfeeding frequently, not necessarily looking at the clock, but they are breastfeeding on demand. Then when they go back to work, that demand has been taken away. And so once that demand is taken away and you don't replace it with, another way of removing breast milk, your supply will definitely reduce, because this is about demand and supply.
Lactation consultants advocate for hydration, balanced nutrition, and expressing milk during extended periods away from the baby to sustain milk production. Stakeholders implore government and workplaces to create safe, functional spaces for breastfeeding. Some parliamentarians are even pushing for legislation mandating the establishment of these spaces. As Breastfeeding Week draws to a close, stakeholders highlight that dedicated breastfeeding spaces need not to be expansive. Rather, they should offer privacy, comfortable seating, electrical outlets for breast pumps, as well as essentials such as sinks and refrigerators. Nobert Atukunda, NTV News.
National Medical Stores, NMS, passionate about your life, with support from the Ministry of Health. Procure, store and distribute essential medicine and medical supplies to all government health facilities in Uganda.